Now, John Elliott was taken on the second round of the 1988 draft out of Michigan, where his 6'7" frame earned him the nickname Jumbo from head coach Bo Schembechler.
Yeah, that's correct. Legendary college coach. I was very fortunate in my career, starting in high school, from Long Island, New York here. And I always had great coaches, legendary in their respective levels. I had Freddie Fusaro at Sachem High School, who was very much like Bo and later Bill. And then I went to Michigan with the Wolverines, and I played under Bo Schembechler, who's, one of the very top guys of all time in college, and very demanding. And then he nicknamed me early on. Him and the coaches somehow came up with the nickname Jumbo. And the older guys on the team, the veterans at Michigan, the upperclassmen, took a shine to the nickname, and they just started using it all the time, and it just stuck right away. And and then I went to Parcells, and Parcells, man, he loved that nickname. He wore it out. he used to have fun with me, man. Put it that way.
Let me just pick right up from that point, because Bill Parcells had his favorite guys, the guys he would say used to drive the wagon all the time, and you were one of those guys. So could you tell people nowadays what it meant to be a Parcells guy?
Well, listen, first of all, I can never say enough good things about Bill Parcells. He's an all-time legendary Hall of Fame coach, and he was instrumental for me in my development as a pro. Him and Freddie Hoagland are the ones who went against conventional wisdom and thought it'd be best for me to be on the left side, left tackle, which I ended up there for 14 years on Giants and for the Giants and the Jets. So, he means the world to me. He's a great guy. We get along, very well. We got to try to look him up this summer, but he's demanding, and he brought out the best in me. I got to say, I'm fortunate to have that kind of coaches in college and in the pros who are very demanding and knew how to bring out the best in me as a player. His structure, though, he looked for guys who, he would say, you got to have staying power. I don't want, he didn't want these fly-by-night guys who look great, play like Tarzan for a couple practices in camp and then fade away, or show up for, a game here and there, and then give you the up and down performance routine. He wanted guys who were there week in, week out, game in, game out, and season after season. That's what it took to be a Parcells guy. Someone who had tremendous staying power, mental toughness and discipline, and a very, very, very top level of work ethic.
A lot of guys will talk about how, they didn't maybe realize it at the time because Bill would get on them and push their buttons and make them angry. But in retrospect, so many of those guys will talk about how they knew that they reached their maximum potential because of Parcells. How true was that for you?
I would say 100% accurate. Coach Parcells, he just had a way of knowing every individual so very well, but he also knew the offensive and defensive squads and how they gelled and fit together with the personalities, and then the team as a whole. And he knew how to push people certain ways to get the end result that's best for the team and the individual. Look, I love Parcells. I'd do anything for him. But, I could tell you, there's probably a few dozen times I'd want to wring his neck in practice. Without a doubt.
That would draw you a 15-yard personal foul flag, I'm telling you right now.
Yeah, that's so true. Oh my God, I remember one time with the Jets, I was like, oh my goodness, he came over to the Jets in '97. Bill once, he was just giving us the what for on a really hot, humid day. And so he's coming in, and everybody in the huddle's looking down, and everybody's like a beaten puppy, right? So I just looked up and I said, Bill, get the F out of this huddle right now. I'm going to whip you. He looks up at me and he smiles. It was like, it was just perfect. He was just, he knew how to get reactions, and he knew how to make a point to the team and get things done.
Well, I guess one of the times, a lot of people talk about how pushing buttons, you had to go up against Bruce Smith in Super Bowl 25. Obviously, a very, very difficult assignment for anybody to have to face a Hall of Famer like him. But my goodness, Bill knew, and so did Coach Belichick on the defensive side of the ball, exactly the blueprint that you guys needed to win that game, albeit Scott Norwood did miss that field goal. One of the great coaching performances I think I'd ever seen.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Now, credit to defense. They had Norwood kind of at his upper range there, so he had to put a little extra leg in it, and that's why he pushed it a little bit, right? So defense came up huge, but the overall game plan in our overall season, the recipe for success for the New York Giants was an offense that could break your will and beat you down and limit your possessions, and a defense that would be 3 and out almost all the time and come up with key turnovers, and a special teams that was lights out. I mean, you name it, from punter to kickoff coverage, Renee Thomas, Sean Landetta, Matt Barr, we were just solid from top to bottom throughout the lineup. I was talking to you before we came on air here about, we had a backup guard who saw a lot of action Super Bowl year, and Bobby Cratch. We had depth almost everywhere, so we could, we weren't thin at all, and we love to compete. We had a bunch of Parcells guys who love to compete, and weren't going to hear it, whether we were playing San Francisco, who was going for their three-peat, or the Buffalo Billy Goats up there who were, beating everybody like 50-10.
Yeah.
Not the playoffs. We really didn't care. We had incredible coaching and a very deep, true team. It wasn't a team that was divided. The pros are the pros, so it's not college, but we had a tight, true team. It wasn't a bunch of hooray for me and forget you kind of guys.
Well, you talk about the depth, and that Super Bowl team of 1990, Rodney Hampton is the young rookie who's exploding onto the scene at running back, but you got Otis Anderson there, the old workhorse. Parcells used to call him Methuselah, remember? And right? And Rodney gets hurt in the playoffs, and it's Otis Anderson who winds up becoming Super Bowl 25 MVP. You guys have that 9+ minute drive in the third quarter, and Otis is just pounding that ball behind you. I can't even imagine what you guys must have been thinking during that drive.
Well, you were thinking it was a key point in the game, right? So we went in there, and we knew pretty much that was the entire ball game. Take away Norwood's kick, which could have gone either way, right? It was a hotly contested game. And it really, if we didn't come out and do what we did in that opening drive there, we could have seen a much different outlook, because they were coming out for blood. They knew they wanted to get the ball to their offense, and it was critical for them, and that was kind of like a last stand for them. And I think that's where we were. That's really the turning point of the game. Now, there's lots of plays and lots of different things you could look at, but if we had come out and went three and out, and Buffalo goes and scores, we could be looking at a whole different night, right?
What was your approach to taking on Bruce Smith in that game? I mean, obviously, he did make the one play where he got Haas for the safety, but in all honesty, that guy could be a game wrecker. So what was your mentality about what you were going to have to do to him to win the game?
Well, you know what? We played them earlier in the year in the Meadowlands, and I played well against Bruce. And listen, he's a great player. You just really had to be on your game at all spots. Some guys, you could be a little bit, make a half-step mistake here and there and get away with it. But with Bruce, if you're not spot on all the time, you're going to get burnt. Now, I will say that the safety play was a designed rollout. I always hated that play. I'm supposed to check down to the inside, and the back has the end man on the line of scrimmage. So, the back whiffed on Bruce. I tried to get back out as fast as possible, but it was way too late by then. So,
if memory serves, Jumbo, that might have been Otis.
It was a running back. In that situation, I would wish we had gone with a sprint out, which was a more direct, faster play. But it is what it is. And I probably, I'm amazed that Hostetler didn't, could hold on to that. Put it that way. But basically, with Bruce, even with the Jets, I always fare pretty well. You really gotta switch things up with him. He was very mentally smart. He could recognize things very, very fast. And he had a good supporting role around him. So, great challenge, but our attitude was like, look, they had great players everywhere. So, our duty as an offense was to, just keep beating them down and take it out of them. So, I think we possessed the ball for about 40 minutes, 42 minutes or something. But, that was, if you look at the season, we were always averaging like 38, 40 minutes with the football.
Mm-hmm.
That was the way we did things. It's Giants football. We're physical. We're gonna beat you up. We're gonna have our way, and then our defensive guys are gonna go out there and make tremendous plays. And before you know it, we changed the field position a bunch on you, and we took a couple of possessions away from you. And over the course of the season, that gets you a few extra wins.
Let me take you to 1993 because that was Phil Sims's last year with the team before the torn rotator cuff wound up resulting in him being gone and retiring eventually. But that season, you got hurt second half of the year. I remember you played the season finale, but then didn't play in the playoffs. I wonder, how good do you think that team was had all of you guys been healthy? Phil played the second half of that season with a bad arm, but had you guys been healthy, could that team have done some special things?
Yeah, for sure. Now, I had a spine issue, and I ended up with surgery after the season, but for sure. Now, 93, I think I made the Pro Bowl that year. I probably should have went 3 years before that, not that year. But those things are weird. I would say, if not for injuries, like you said with Phil, that was a holdout year, adjustment year for me. Dan Reeves came in, correct?
Yes.
That year.
Yes.
And so that. We would have had an excellent chance if we were healthy. We still had a core group of guys there. And, it's really a shame. I was talking to Coach Parcells a ways back, and we were talking about, that year, we were talking about a lot of things. But, I always said to him, I said, Coach, I know you had the health thing and you retired for a little bit. He went prime time on us and did a little TV and whatnot. But I always was like, we were beating playoff teams throughout the 91, 92, 93, 90. We had a very good talent. We were just missing Big Bill, Little Bill left us. And I'm thinking, I was like, Coach, we would have been better than the Patriots before the Patriots did what they did. We could have kept the gang together.
No, I think you're right. I think the Giants certainly could have won one or two more for sure during that era. It seemed like there was so much there that could have been. But, hey, you know what? I'll be honest with you, Jumbo. It's not like, there weren't a lot of wins because there were a lot of good times with those teams.
Yeah, For sure. No doubt about it. And, Dan Reeves is a great coach in his own right, for sure. It's just, Parcells had a little something, actually, he had a little something more to connect with that team and all the players on it. And we really missed him when he took his time out there for a while. So we had a lot of regret there for sure. Phil, look how gutty Phil is. Imagine if Phil was healthy.
I know.
Oh my God, that would have been a lot different. Yeah, so I'd miss. Who did we play in the playoffs? San Fran? Wasn't that?
That was. You guys went out to San Francisco after beating Minnesota at home. Went out to Candlestick, and that turned out to be Phil and Lawrence Taylor's last game.
Right, exactly. And there I am. I got a blown out disc, and I'm not even there for that one. So. Yeah, that was a miserable end of the season. Oh God!
Though, in bringing up Lawrence Taylor, though, Jumbo, I got to ask you something, because I remember the stories back then, because I was covering the team in those days, about how Lawrence would keep asking for you to be in the lineup during practice because nobody else could push him and give him any competition at all. I mean, I think on one hand you have to feel great respect and admiration that Lawrence wants you in there. On the other hand, you got to be saying to yourself, "Can I get a couple of reps off?"
You know what? You just gave me goosebumps when you said that. I think to me, obviously Lawrence is an all-time giant, and I always credit Parcells and Freddie Hoagland, my line coach, who developed me as a left tackle. But one of the key ingredients I always say is Lawrence Taylor had a huge, I can't even say enough of what a big role he had in my development as a player. And, he just had everything there is to have in a defensive player. So, he was tremendous for me as a young tackle to get to mix it up with him. And he was, he's a great teammate. I mean, me and him could, we yell at each other, or, I could get on his nerves or vice versa. But, he was, he lockered 2 lockers down, and we were all extremely tight. And it was just an honor to practice against the guy, So you gave me goosebumps by saying that for sure. Parcells might have instigated a little something before the Super Bowl, but Lawrence and myself too. To make sure I was cranked up and ready to go, and to get a point across to the team as well. But look, can you imagine you walk into a game as a team, and we're pretty good, but then we have Lawrence Taylor, right? So It's kind of like you have a security blanket. It's like you just know that Lawrence is going to do 2 or 3 things during that game that's going to flip the field or change the momentum. It was just such a luxury to have that guy. He gave the offense, obviously he was a great defensive guy, but he gave the offense a lot of confidence too.
It was just incredible to watch you guys go at it at practice. It was a learning experience, and in some ways even more fun than the games. So you wind up doing 8 years with the Giants and 6 years with the Jets. For a New York native, my goodness, Jumbo, you got to look back at that and say that was a ton of fun.
Oh, yeah, for sure. New York fans are the best. New York fans are extremely smart. They're very knowledgeable. And they can be hard, no doubt. But, that's New York. And, one of the other big regrets is I got a ring with the Giants. I regret we could have had several more runs at it. We've been in the mix there, but wasn't to be. And, when Parcells came over with the Jets, we almost got one with the Jets there in '98. That would have capped it, right? A ring with the 2 New York teams, that would have been a real capper for the career. But we came very close out in Denver in '98, and it just slipped away from us.
Well, the Giants certainly hope that there's another one sometime in their future. And, Jumbo, it looks as though they have done a good job trying to rebuild that offensive line. As somebody I know who studies the game still today and watches these games with a lot of loyalty, What do you see the biggest challenges for these Giants as they move forward with these new guys on the offensive line, specifically Andrew Thomas, the rookie they've drafted out of Georgia? They expect him to be a stud for many years to come.
Yeah, great expectations there and very exciting. I didn't get to see him a lot in college, but, other than highlights. But overall, our Giant offensive line is not where it needs to be, right? So what are we, like mid-pack, ranked right around 20th line or something like that? Mm-hmm. And that's just not Giants football. And it hasn't been Giants football for a number of years now. So we need to get back to that. We got a really great running back. We have a bright young quarterback who looks like he's on the up and coming. And it's just we have to do our job up front. So Thomas has me excited. We can't be 20th ranked O-line. We got to move up into the top 10 for sure this year. And then, obviously, you prefer to be in the top 5 always, but, we got to make one step at a time. So we got a possibility of, does Thomas play his natural position at left tackle, like he did in college, or do we see a possible move of Nate Solder over to the right side for that, or are we going to see Nate? We got to, I think, the Giants committed to him with a contract. Mm-hmm. So do we keep him on the left side and see if Thomas can grow up on the right side before taking over eventually on the left? This is going to be interesting without the OTAs and football camp. A little different now than back in our day. Let's say that. It's a little. It's going to be hard because for one thing, he's a rookie, so he needs to get his feet wet. And the other thing is, if Solder were to move, that's another look. I was a left tackle my whole career, and if they moved me to the right side, I would have been like a fish out of water for at least a little while. Mm-hmm. That's a huge adjustment. So I'm curious to see if they try that move right away, or they let the kid work into it first, competing on the right side and plugging that hole. So that's one thing to watch for sure. I think we got a big kid, Pert, coming in there who's more of a project. I'm sure he'll see action on short yardage and stuff like that. But, it looks like he's someone who needs coached up for a year or two before he's, a real mainstay. So I'd say he's more in the project category. And listen, if Pert surprises me and he's an ass kicker right away, hats off and all, I'm happy about it. So you forget it. So we could have a battle on the right side with Pert, he's a project, Thomas, unless they go right away with him at left tackle, and then Fleming. Fleming's a great pickup because he can play both sides.
Right.
Right? So now we're getting back. Remember, we were talking about my Super Bowl team, what a deep team we had. I'm very glad to see that we got him because you need depth, and if guys get hurt or whatever, you don't want to see a massive drop off. You want to be able to sustain things. So he's big, and he's going to be in the mix for sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm saying he's a backup, but he's in the mix at right tackle. He can compete and win that job. And then, center, that's the next biggest thing. That center with a young quarterback who's still learning. What do you do there? You probably keep the...
Well, Spencer Pulley is the holdover right now. Jalapeno is still coming off of injury. And then they think that Lemieux, the kid they drafted out of Oregon, may be in the mix.
Well, Lemieux, I don't know enough about. Now he's got to make a name for himself. First 3 draft picks usually, get a little bit longer look. Once you drop down to the 4th, 5th round and stuff, you got to show something. And so hopefully he will. I imagine you keep Pulley there because he's got more experience. Mm-hmm. Gates could surprise in camp. We'll see on that one. But, I think the experience probably wins out with a younger quarterback. I think the most exciting thing to see is Will they move Nate over to the right side and let Thomas just from day one say left tackle's his position, or or do they choose that, or do they choose to go ahead and let Thomas compete with Kurt and Fleming on the right side and keep Nate over on the left side?
Offensive linemen have always said to me they'd love to run block. It's easier and it's better in terms of you guys are on the attack instead of receiving that pass rush. Even though they've got a Daniel Jones, they've also got Saquon Barkley back there. So I'm sure if you were playing on this offensive line, you'd rather see Barkley run it 30 times a game, wouldn't you?
Oh, for sure. It's funny. I was talking to an old teammate. You remember Giant Joe Morris, right?
Oh, Little Joe.
Yeah, Little Joe. I was talking to his brother Jamie, who was a Redskin for a few years.
And a Michigan guy, by the way, Jamie Morris, like yourself.
Exactly. I was just talking to him last night, and he still holds the record for carries in a game. Joe Gibbs tried to kill him. He almost he had like 45 attempts or something. And it's funny you say 30 carries, because I was like, I was making fun of Jamie last night. We were having a little fun. I was saying, oh my God, nowadays if someone carries the ball 25, 30 times, they might protest. It's a different game. But the run game, though, for sure it could be the quarterback's best friend for play action and creating space. Absolutely, I'm all about that. It is different, though, run blocking. You can't. Now, I know coaches, and so it's changed how you can coach football and teach football. So, it might be easier for the guys now, but because it's not as hard. They don't master it the same. It's more about shielding and positioning, and not so much dominating. I would like to see us get more like I'm looking for Hernandez, our guard, to I think he's on the right path, but now he's got to be consistent and take that next extra step. I'd like to see more dominating as opposed to being adequate, finishing guys and creating creases for Saquon. And there's absolutely no reason that Barkley shouldn't be in the top rushers, year in and year out. To take a lot of pressure off the quarterback, and it'll help the defense, it'll help the special teams, it'll help us win.
What is it about the offensive line today, the style of play that they play, Jumbo, that's different from the style of offensive line that you played in your day? Is it much different? Is it more about or less about technique than it used to be?
Yeah, well, the technique is just not there. When they're coming out of school, the offenses are different now in college, so they're coming out with different skill sets. And, the practice is different, on every level now. The contact they can have and the amount of repetitions you can have, it's all changed. It's all very limited. So you can't do now what you did in the 90s or the 80s, or you probably get arrested as a coach. So you're coming out and the guys are used to these, these run-pass option offenses, and it's more about positioning and shielding. I'm generalizing. Obviously there's exceptions to that, but it's just a little bit. Listen, it's still one of the hardest positions there is, and one of the hardest things there is in sport. But it is. If you look at different eras, it is a softer. It's definitely softer league with and I think it's just going to continue that way. When you see overall with the leagues wanting to lengthen the season, and the league's also concerned with the head stuff, that'll crop up again. That's not going to go away. I just think eventually you won't even see 3-point stances anymore. And this is the way when the game keeps evolving over the next decade.
Well, then, in addition to those things, the way the game and the position has evolved this year because of the learning off of a television or computer screen, I can only imagine how difficult how the offensive line play is going to be whenever it is that they actually get on the field this season.
Bingo. You just nailed something that's so important. Now, as it is, it's starting to look like with all these changing rules, if you notice, the first 3 games or so was a little sketchy, turnovers and penalties and false starts and blah, blah, blah. It was sloppy, right? So the first 3 games in the modern era have kind of become like the preseason, almost. And so I think that we're going to see that trend continue. And, it is very challenging as a coach. As far as you can look at the playbook, and you can coach online, and what do they do? Zoom now, they call it? I'm not very technical.
They got a lot of names for it. It's a screen. That much I can tell you. It's a screen.
Okay. Look, all right, so we're looking at a screen, and that's great, and the coaches are trying to do what they can in this environment, but, boy, you can't have even a walkthrough is so important, to get out there and put the image in your head and what the coach is trying to convey to you. There's subtleties that you have to do in person, you have to do live, even if it's half speed. You get to see, you got to time it up with the running back. Saquon's got to see it, the different angles, the way the different defenses will respond to those plays. There's like a dozen subtleties that are missed by, doing what they're doing on screen. Although I know they have no choice. That's what they have to do right now. But it's going to make for a very interesting year, and it's going to be harder on, physically it's better for the guys in today's game, but, it's going to be harder for the young guys to pick up the game as fast without the OTAs and the mini camps and, the full-go summer camps.